What's up, guys, and welcome in to episode 3 now of the Rally Time podcast. I'm your host, Justin Babin. Christian is back here producing the show. Like we're gonna be here as always with the new hairdo, looking nice.
Yeah, I got the buzz cut, right?
Yeah, we'll be here, same crew every week during LSU baseball season, except for last week because I was out of town during Mardi Gras weekend. But I am glad to be back. And we missed a lot, Christian.
We did.
LSU has played 10 games.
Not 8, not 9, not 7, not 12, not 100. They played 10 games.
LSU has played 10 games since our last episode, which was recapping the Omaha series, which seems like forever
A lot
ago.
of wins in those 10 games.
Yeah, they won all 10 of those games. That's a lot of really good signs coming out of those 10 games. But here's kind of how the show's going to work today, guys, is it's going to be a little less formatted than the first two shows. Going to kind of jump around. What we're going to do is we're going to break down what happened from this week with the 2 midweek games against North Dakota State and the weekend series against North Alabama in particular, because that's what happened most recently, and we don't want to necessarily dive deep into a game that happened a week and a half ago, but we are going to reflect back on what happened in Texas with those 4 games, in Arlington on Wednesday, and then Frisco over not this past weekend, but the weekend before, because it was LSU's toughest non-conference test by far before SEC play starts. I mean, LSU beat some really good teams, really solid teams in Texas, and had some really competitive and interesting games. Let's get right into it. Before we get into the North Dakota State game, the first North Dakota State game that was last Tuesday on Fat Tuesday, before we get into that game, what was LSU coming off of heading into that? LSU played 4 games in Texas. One of those games was Wednesday when they had their first ranked win of the season against number 18 ranked Dallas Baptist, who Dallas Baptist has always been a good program, good solid baseball program. So that was a big win for LSU. And then they headed into the Frisco College Baseball Classic, where they played a game against Kansas State on Friday, Nebraska on Saturday, and Sam Houston State on Sunday. And we're just going to kind of start the show with few takeaways from, in particular, those 3 games in Frisco, Texas last weekend. It wasn't whereas the first 2 weekend series, especially the pitching was pretty good. In Frisco, it was shaky at times. It wasn't great. It wasn't great, but it was gritty. Like, they got out of some key situations where they could have ran into some trouble. They got hit off of. They allowed a few runs here and there. They were a little shaky with their command in terms of walks and like hit by pitches and stuff like that. But when it was time to buckle down, some pitchers had some really big outs, some really big innings in Frisco against some really good teams, especially that first game that Friday against Kansas State. Kansas State, the weekend before that, before they played LSU, the weekend before that, Kansas State beat 3 ranked teams. And last year, Kansas State made it to a super regional after they upset Arkansas to win the Fayetteville regional last year. So that Kansas State team was a really good team. It was really good to see LSU win those 3 games against their toughest non-conference competition. Just kind of a few takeaways that I came with is that LSU, we've talked about it, they're so deep. They're so deep, they're so talented, there's so much depth on this team. But to me, there's a big 3 at the plate. It's Derek Curiel, Jared Jones, Daniel Dickinson. 1, 2, 3, top of the lineup. And I'll just say this about Derek Curiel real quick. Derek Curiel's first game in the leadoff spot was the Wednesday game in Arlington against Dallas Baptist. And since that game, he has played in the leadoff spot in every game LSU has played. And I don't expect him to move. This guy is a freshman who was highly touted out of California. While it's only 1 month in SEC play, he hasn't faced SEC pitching yet. I understand that. Derek Curiel has impressed like been one of the most impressive freshmen I've seen at LSU, like hitting wise in terms of his approach at the plate. Now, you could say there's been better freshmen like Dylan Cruz. I would never, compare Derek Curiel to Dylan Cruz this early,
You don't need to compare him. You don't need to compare him.
I would never do that. But I'm saying I can't, besides Cruz, I can't remember a freshman who's looked as good as Curiel.
Bregman.
At the plate. I mean, Bregman, yes, of course. Guys like Cruz, guys like Bregman, of course. But,
it's a small list for sure.
It's a small list. I mean, Curiel is leading the team in on-base percentage with a .588 on-base percentage. He is batting .421. His batting average is .421. He has drawn the most walks. He has been walked 21 times. The guy either gets a really good hit and really clutch moments. He gets on base more times than not. Like, his pitch recognition at the plate in terms of knowing what balls are good to try to take a hit at and what balls to lay off of is amazing to me to see the first month of his college career.
Yeah.
That .588 on base percentage, those 21 walks and that .421 average, to me, he is the ideal leadoff guy. I don't see him moving from that spot all season unless something changes in terms of performance. And who knows, he hasn't faced SEC pitching yet, but he looks really impressive. Going back to the combination of Curiel 1, Jones 2, and Dickinson 3 at the top of the order, the concern going into this season for me, and not really a concern, but the question mark was that I think a lot of people thought opposing teams were going to try to work their way around Jared Jones and walk him more times than not because of his power, because he's obviously the most powerful guy on the team. I mean, right now, after the North Alabama series, he's leading the team in total home runs. He has 6 home runs, and he hit 2 this weekend. So Jared Jones is that power bat, and the concern for me a little bit was how was LSU going to find a place to protect him in the lineup? I feel like they've found that with putting him behind Curiel and in front of Dickinson. The best way I can explain it is by an illustration from LSU's first game in Frisco against Kansas State, where it go back to the 7th inning of that game where the game is tied at 2 in the top of the 7th. Kansas State decides they want to intentionally walk Jared Jones because of his power, because there's an open base, so they don't want to pitch to him. So they just decide to intentionally walk Jones, and then the at-bat right after that, Daniel Dickinson steps up and hits a 3-run bomb to make the game 5-2 and give LSU the lead. For that concern with Jones, with people pitching around him, I don't think you can ignore him. When you have a guy before him that gets on base with a .588 OBP and a batting average that is in the 420s, and then the guy behind Jones in the 3-hole is second on the team behind Jones with 5 homers on the season, and he's batting above 350, so he's no slouch. We've already talked the past 2 episodes about how good Dickinson has looked. So the combination of those 3 guys, to me, is what sets LSU apart. Yes, the team has depth, and we'll get into that, of course, at the plate. A lot of guys hit, especially in Frisco and this past week against North Alabama. Those 3 guys, to me, are kind of like my big 3 bats on the team. Like, they're the leaders of this team, in my opinion, heading into SEC play this weekend in the box against Missouri. A few other notes from Frisco, just running through this. We talked about Curiel, Jones, and Dickinson, but 2 other guys I want to mention are Josh Pearson's looked really, really good the past 2 weeks. I've really liked how Josh Pearson has looked at the plate, and I've always loved Josh Pearson. I just love the kind of player he is. He's one of my favorite players on the team, in my personal opinion. That's just my opinion. That's like 2023 season. My favorite player on the team was Gavin Dugas, and was he the best player besides, of course, Cruz and White were the best players, but I was just a Gavin Dugas fan. I'm a Josh Pearson fan. I like Josh Pearson a lot. Kind of didn't do much out of the gate against Purdue Fort Wayne. Not that much against Omaha. But he has looked really, really good 10 games. Another guy who's looked good as well, Stephen Milam's been looking good. Stephen Milam, we haven't talked about him a lot. He was kind of shaky in the first series, but he has his average up into the 400s. And he hit another home run this weekend. I believe he has 4 homers on the season as it stands right now. Really like what I'm seeing out of Milam. As far as another thing, LSU really won those 3 games in Frisco against K-State, Nebraska, and Sam Houston in 3 different ways. That K-State game on Friday was a back-and-forth game that went into extra innings where Josh Pearson hit the single for the go-ahead run that was eventually the winning run before Daniel Dickinson got a hit for two more RBIs to not to score 8-5, and that's what the score ended at. But they won that game in close game throughout. The Nebraska game, they started down 5-0. Really struggled early in that game. And then especially Anthony Ianson gave up 5 runs in the first 3 innings. But Ianson, which we'll get to a little bit later, eventually got it to where he was able to battle back and pitch scoreless innings in the 4th, 5th, and 6th to really turn that game around. And the bats really heated up. And then the Sam Houston game was the complete opposite, where they started out hot. I believe it was like 7-0 early LSU lead, and then LSU has to hold on because the pitching kind of wavered late in the game, and they hold on to win a slugfest 12-8. Really, it was good to see LSU get tested. Like, they got tested in all of those games. In K-State, they got tested as far as, can you win a close game? Nebraska, they got tested as far as, okay, guys, you spotted the other team 5 runs. Do you have the maturity and the mental toughness to battle back? In the Sunday game against Sam Houston, okay, guys, you got out to a 7-0 lead, but Sam Houston State's got a little bit of momentum late in the game. Can you close the door and close this thing out? And they did. LSU really impressed with what I saw in Texas. Now, after Texas, think about LSU's schedule. They had that Monday game at Nichols, or not at Nichols, but that Monday game versus Nichols in the box that they won. Immediately after that, they leave right from the box to travel to Texas. They play a game against Dallas Baptist on Wednesday, travel to Frisco, play 3 games over the weekend. They win all those games, but they come back Tuesday night, and the first 3 innings, the team just came out flat against North Dakota State. Like, they really struggled in first 3 innings of that Tuesday game against North Dakota State. Now, LSU came back and eventually won the game at a score of 11-9 was the final, but they struggled early. Connor Ware started the North Dakota State game. Connor Ware's been really good so far this season. You know, he started the game against Dallas Baptist where he pitched the first 4 innings scoreless, before allowing a solo home run in the 5th inning that led off the 5th inning, and then he was replaced by Zach Cowan. I really liked what I've seen out of Connor Ware, the transfer from Pearl River Community College, but he didn't have his stuff in this game against North Dakota State. He didn't have it. It was his worst game as a Tiger so far. I don't expect that to continue necessarily. I really like Connor Ware, but he didn't really have it, especially in the first inning. In the first inning, he gave up 3 runs on 2 hits in the first inning. And then in the third, Connor Ware, Jaden Newt, and DJ Primo combined to give up 4 more runs in the third on 2 hits and 2 errors in the third. Again, Ware just didn't have it in this game. He only ended up pitching 2 innings. He gave up 5 earned runs on 2 hits, 3 walks, 2 wild pitches, 2 hit batters, and 5 Ks. And looking at that stat line, it's just kind of like, especially in Frisco a little bit, while the pitching wasn't bad, I'm not saying they were bad. Again, I said they fought and they were gritty and they were tough. Whereas the first 2 weekend series against Purdue Fort Wayne and Omaha, they were doing really well on the mound with their command as far as balls and strikes. They started giving up a few more walks and hitting a few more batters, especially in Frisco. And then again in this Tuesday game, the first game against North Dakota State. After the third, North Dakota State also scored 2 runs in the fourth. Cade Arambidi really struggled at catcher defensively as far as blocking balls. A lot of pass balls, a lot of wild pitches in that game that didn't help Connor Ware or any of the other pitchers early. An LSU team who's been really good fielding-wise all season to start non-conference play was kind of shaky to start. They made a couple errors in the first couple of innings of that game on Tuesday, and they just started out flat. I don't know, not to make excuses, but I don't know if it's because they spent all that time in Texas and they've been on the road and all of that.
Yeah, I think it was just a bit of a hangover.
You know?
I think after a big tournament win like that, I think it's easy to get caught up in the moment and not look ahead at your next game, especially with the North Dakota State team that came in 1-9. I mean, they're looking for a win. They're hungry, right? And I can imagine LSU was not that hungry compared to North Dakota State. So I think it was a little bit of a hangover. I would read into it just to see what LSU struggled with, but I would not look into it too much because, we saw them bounce back every single game after that. How many games have they played since then? 4?
Yes, 4.
Yeah, 4. Okay.
4.
And all 4 have been, besides the one, I think Saturday was it? I think they've all been pretty shut out, pretty dominant, to say the least. So, yeah, I wouldn't read into that too much, but like you said, it is interesting to see what LSU could have done better and what they did wrong in that game and what went wrong for them.
Yeah, but eventually LSU was able to capitalize off of a not so good pitching staff from North Dakota State. North Dakota State, again, as you said, entering that game on Tuesday, their first game against LSU, 1-9 on the season, and that pitching staff was not that good. LSU offense eventually was able to bring it back. They scored 1 in the second, 4 in the third, 2 in the fourth, 2 in the sixth, and 2 in the eighth. I thought another thing is I thought that it was really good to see the bats bounce back and kind of cover again for the struggles defensively and on the mound early in the game. There was another pitcher for LSU who actually made his debut as a Tiger in this game. I thought every pitcher had pitched thus far, but in this game, South Florida transfer Chandler Dorsey debuted, and Dorsey combined with Zach Cowan and Kason Evans to kind of settle things down for the pitching staff by putting up 5 zeros in the final 5 innings of Tuesday's game. As far as 2 guys I want to talk about, Zach Cowan and Kason Evans, I really like what I've seen from both of them, especially Kason Evans. Kason Evans has really impressed. He has not given up a run yet for LSU. And to me, Kason Evans has established himself as your clear closer heading into SEC play. He's got electric stuff with his fastball. He throws heat. Really like Zach Cowan as well. Zach Cowan's the transfer from Wofford, who was Wofford's ace last season, who led them to their first NCAA tournament win in a game last season that he started in, and they won in the Chapel Hill Regional. Zach Cowan's really experienced. He pitched 110 innings last year at Wofford. I like what I've seen out of him so far.
I am interested to see Gavin Guidry.
I know
he hasn't been in yet, but if this weekend is the weekend, I think there could be a little bit of a closer battle, little position battle for the closer spot this weekend if we see Guidry in that role. I don't think we will. I think we'll probably see Evans if they need to go to a closer to actually close out a game, but I think you will see Guidry in a little bit of a lighter ramp-up role for the later SEC series because, Gavin Guidry brings the experience. He does bring the what you habits with all the stuff he does and how intense he is. But I think his experience and he is good enough to close 2 innings, 1 inning and really get you out of a game that you need to get out of. So I think you will see Gavin Guidry this weekend. But it is important to note that could be a position battle we see later in the season.
Yeah. I think to start SEC play, I get your point and I agree.
Yeah.
I think to start SEC play, you want to kind of ease Guidry back into the rotation.
Absolutely.
If it comes down to it where it's a close game against Missouri, they're probably going to hand the ball to Kason Evans.
Yeah.
But I could definitely see a scenario later in the season where Guidry challenges him for that spot after he gets eased back into the rotation. Again, as far as Kason Evans, after the Monday the day after the Frisco series, Kason Evans was announced, just showing how good he's been. He was the SEC co-freshman of the week after that week that LSU spent in Texas. He closed the game out against Dallas Baptist on Wednesday with 1 1/3 innings, 1 2/3 innings against Dallas Baptist. Then he came back off of 1 day of rest later against Kansas State, and really in a tie game he came in the ninth and pitched 2 excellent innings to close the game out for LSU against a really good K-State team. Really like Kason Evans and what he's been producing. As far as hitting in this game, again, Daniel Dickinson continued to shine. He had 3 hits, including another home run and 2 RBIs. We talked about Steven Milam before. He had 2 doubles in this game and 3 RBIs to go along with those 2 doubles. We talked about how Cade Beatty struggled at catcher defensively, but positive for Aaron Beatty, he did hit his first ever home run in college, his first ever home run as a Tiger. He hit a 2-run homer in the game. So overall, Tuesday, it was a nice comeback. I will say, they started out slow, and it was kind of concerning coming off the Frisco series where they struggled with their command a little bit going into this Tuesday game. And then Tuesday, they walked 6 batters and they hit 4 more. So the command was a little bit wonky for a couple games. Really good comeback from the Tigers on Tuesday. So leading into the second game against North Dakota State on that Wednesday night, LSU, this game was completely opposite. LSU won this game in 7 innings by a score of 13-3, which included a 7-run first inning for the Tigers, which was really good to see. It was LSU's best start to a game so far in the young season after they had their worst start of the young season just the night before. So it was really good seeing them bounce back after that shaky start in the first game against North Dakota State. They were like, let's go out and handle these guys in this game.
How to shake off the hangover, how to get the Tylenol in the system, drink a little water, maybe a little liquid IV. And, yeah, they were good to go from there.
Yeah, they had that 7-run first inning where they sent 11 batters to the plate, recorded 6 hits, 1 walk, and 1 hit by pitch in that first inning. They also scored 4 more runs in the third inning to make the score 11-1 after 3.
Puke and rally, baby. Puke and rally.
Yeah. That's funny. But in this game, Jared Jones continued to slug. He hit 2 home runs in this game against the second game against North Dakota State on Wednesday. Hit 2 homers that drove in 5 RBIs. So Jones continues to be who Jared Jones has always been at LSU.
The number 1 first baseman in the country.
The number 1 first baseman in the country,
there
according to D1 Baseball, and you could see why. Why.
And the fielding's on point too.
It is. He's been great. He's been great at first base. As far as pitching for this game, Catholic High freshman William Schmidt started for LSU. It was his second start for LSU Wednesday against North Dakota State. I just kind of want to keep an eye on William Schmidt because of how highly touted he was out of Catholic High. We didn't really talk about this game, but in the Nichols game the week before, that was William Schmidt's first start as a Tiger. Against Nichols, he pitched 4 2/3 innings where he gave up 2 runs, 1 earned run, along with 5 hits and 3 strikeouts. And then in this game, his second start for LSU, second midweek start, and his third appearance of the season, Schmidt uses lights out stuff to blow by the North Dakota State lineup. He ended up pitching 4 innings of 1-run baseball and gave up 2 hits, 2 walks, 3 hit-by pitches, and 7 Ks. Again, that command is a little bit concerning out of the LSU pitching staff, but it's something we've seen their ability to command the baseball. So they have it in them. We saw it the first couple weeks, saw a little bit of a struggle the weeks after that, but pretty good stuff so far out of Schmidt in non-conference play. After Schmidt, Dalton Beck and Nichols transferred Jacob Myers. Both of them pitched a scoreless inning in both the 5th and the 6th, with Jacob Myers in the 6th actually working his way out of a bases-loaded jam after he walked 3 batters. So Myers was able to work his way out of that bases-loaded jam, walking 3 batters. And then, again, the game ended in 7 innings due to run rule, so Grant Fontenot closed out the game in the 7th when he gave up 2 runs on 1 hit, 1 walk, and 1 hit by pitch, and also 1 strikeout. Still need to work on command a little bit, as LSU pitchers walked 7 and hit 4 more North Dakota State batters in this game. It's something as we get into North Alabama, those 3 games which we're about to dive into, didn't really struggle with that as much, so that's positive. Again, you've seen LSU be able to command the baseball, but you've also seen them be able to not command the baseball in a couple of games. So it'll be interesting to see how they keep going with that. Curio had another good game against North Dakota State. He had 2 hits and 2 RBIs. And then Chris Stanfield finished with 2 hits and 1 RBI. One point I want to make about Stanfield is I like him in the 9 spot. I like him in the 9 spot because it really adds kind of a second leadoff hitter to turn the lineup around for Curio, Jones, and Dickinson, because we talked about it before. Stanfield's the fastest guy on the team. Anytime he puts the ball in play, he makes it hard on the fielders to get him out because he can run it out because he's that fast and that quick. So I like him in the 9 hole. I like how he's done so far, and I like the idea of him as a second leadoff hitter leading into the meat of the order with Curiel, Jones, and Dickinson. So those were the midweek games against North Dakota State. Now we're going to get into the series from just this past weekend, the 3-game weekend series in the box against North Alabama. So let's get right into it.
All right.
The first game, Friday, against North Alabama, LSU won via the run rule in 7 innings by a score of 13-2. Cade Anderson made another Friday start. He started every Friday for LSU. He's going to continue. He's the guy Jay Johnson trusts, and he's looks like their best pitcher. You saw that in this game. He was really good in this game. Cade Anderson was, and you know the thing that stood out the most about Anderson's performance is he actually got through the 6th inning, where in his 2 previous starts against both Omaha and Kansas State, once he got to the 6th inning, he started to struggle. He gave up back-to-back home runs once he got to the 6th inning the week prior to this game against Kansas State. But in this game, he got through the 6th inning pretty good, pretty well, which was something you wanted to see going into SEC play. So that was a really good sign. Anderson finished, again, he pitched 6 innings of 1-run baseball. He allowed 4 hits through 1 wild pitch and struck out 11. Again, just adding up the strikeout totals. That's who Cade Anderson's always been. So good performance by Anderson. You know, he threw 92 pitches in this game and was averaging around 94 miles an hour the entire game. So his longest outing so far this season, which is good to see for your starters heading into the grind of SEC play that starts later this weekend. It was a really good outing, and I'm really confident in what Anderson has done. You know, he didn't walk a single batter in this game, which was good to see as far as command-wise from Anderson. And then Maverick Rizzi came in the game and closed the game out in the 7th. Again, only went 7 innings because of the run rule. Rizzi in the 7th allowed a single and a walk before 2 consecutive flyouts to the outfield drove in a run for North Alabama. And then Rizzi forced a ground out to end the game. As far as the hitting, this game was fun. This Friday night was fun because LSU smashed the ball. They hit 6 home runs in this game, which was really, LSU hadn't hit 6 home runs in a game before this game Friday since the 2023 Super Regionals against Kentucky.
Bayou Bombers.
Bayou Bombers, absolutely. They were mashing the ball all around the park. And what stood out to me from this is the key to a good baseball team is in how many ways can you win a game. I'll give an example. Going back to the Nebraska game the weekend before in Frisco, the Saturday game LSU played against Nebraska where they won 11-6 in that game. LSU put up 11 runs. They had 17 hits, but they didn't have a single homer in that game. But they were still able to put runs on the board, to score, to put up 11 runs and 17 hits without a single home run. So they're able to win that way, and then in this game, they just mashed the ball and hit 6 out of the park. And that's a little bit more fun, seeing the long ball. But seeing them being able to get runs on the board in multiple ways, you've seen that so far in non-conference play this season.
Means necessary.
Any means necessary, absolutely. LSU scored 5 runs in the third inning to start off. Josh Pearson began the scoring with a solo homer in the third. That was, at the time, his first homer of the season. Then later in the third, Jake Brown had an RBI double. And then there was another 3-run home run by Tanner Reeves, who... It's been interesting seeing him. He's kind of, him and Michael Braswell kind of battling for the third base spot.
Right. As
far as, Reeves has been good. I like how Reeves has been playing, and, Michael Braswell, he's a guy who I liked, especially at the end of last season. Hasn't been as good to start the season. He's been kind of slow. Sunday he came in the game late Sunday and made a few errors in the final few innings. I like Michael Braswell, but something to keep an eye on is kind of Reeves and Braswell kind of rotating there. Now, Jay Johnson was asked a question. I was at the post-game presser the other day, I believe Friday, and he was asked a question, Jay, are you okay as far as, do you have any concerns about the fact that you have not drilled down for certainty a starting third baseman? And he said, no, I'm totally fine putting either Reeves or Braswell in the game at third and totally confident in both of those guys. So Reeves had that 3-run homer in the third. Again, LSU scored 5 in the third inning of that game. First homers of the year for Pearson, and it was the first homer of the year for Reeves, and first homer in an LSU uniform for Reeves. LSU scored 2 more runs in the fourth off of 2 solo home runs for both Daniel Dickinson and Stephen Milam had solo home runs in the fourth. Dickinson at that point hit his 5th homer of the season, and at that point Milam hit his 3rd homer of the season. Luis Hernandez also hit a solo home run in the 5th. It was his first homer as a Tiger, his first homer this season. And what's interesting is Hernandez hit 23 homers last year at Indiana State. And this was his first homer this past weekend against LSU. So he has power in the bat. He's shown it before. But Jay Johnson made the point Friday that he didn't expect Luis Hernandez to hit 23 homers this season because he's playing catcher. Luis Hernandez never played catcher before this season. Now, he's been really good defensively. He hasn't really had that many problems at catcher defensively. He's playing a really good catcher. So while he may not get up into the 20s like he did last year in terms of home runs, I'm okay with that as long as he's playing catcher like he's playing, and he's playing it solidly and pretty well. But it was good to see him get his first home run in a Tiger uniform. So after Hernandez hit his solo home run in the 5th, LSU scored 5 more runs in the 6th when Jake Brown was walked with the bases loaded. Aaron Beatty reached base on a fielder's choice, and Josh Pearson's younger brother, the freshman,
bigger
John Pearson, Josh Pearson's younger and much bigger brother, hit his first home run off the scoreboard. It was a 3-run homer that John Pearson hit in the 6th inning, and it was mashed off the bat. You could tell it was gone. Like, it was absolutely glorious to see John Pearson crushed that ball. I was up in the press box and trying to like stay cool and stay calm.
Right.
And I see John Pearson and I'm like, oh my goodness.
Who is this kid?
But yeah, so that was cool to see. And it was cool to see, you know, Josh and John, both Pearson brothers, hit a home run in the same game. That was the first time 2 brothers have hit home runs in the same game for LSU since the 2005 season. So,
who were the brothers? Do you know?
Who were the brothers
that hit the home runs in the 2005 season?
That hit the home run in the 2005
I know they've had, the
season.
Pontiff brothers come through. You've had Duplantis, but his brother was a pole vaulter, so that doesn't count. Yeah, who are the brothers that have played for LSU, and who are the brothers that hit the home runs in 2005? I'm curious.
Clay and Will Harris.
Okay.
I knew who it was. Somebody told me that earlier this week, but their name was slipping my mind. But it was the Harris brothers back in 2005, who I do not know. But it was the Harris brothers back in 2005.
Can you think of any brothers that have played on the same team together besides the Pearsons and the Harris brothers?
The Jordans.
That's right. Good pull.
Did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who else? Anybody else?
I can't either.
I'm trying to think
I
of
know there's
pitcher
been
hitter
more
combos.
though. I know there's been more though.
I know the Pontiffs weren't on the same team, but Wally Pontiff and Nick Pontiff both played for LSU.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, to recap the Friday game, LSU dominated as far as hit 6 homers, and they won 13-2 in 7 innings. So let's go to Saturday game 2 against North Alabama, that LSU won by a score of 6-2. Now, a point I did want to make that I forgot to make earlier was at one point during this 10-game stretch, LSU scored double-digit runs in 5 straight games. It started with the Nebraska game in Frisco on Saturday up until the next Saturday against North Alabama when LSU scored 6 runs. LSU scored double-digit runs in every game between them. But, you know, as far as the lineup, it wasn't bad. You know, they still scored 6 runs. They still performed well. It just wasn't 13 runs, and that's okay. It's not going to happen every game. I want to start with the most impressive thing from the Saturday game, and that was Anthony Ianson. So Anthony Ianson started for LSU, and he originally struggled a little bit in the first inning. You know, he gave up 2 runs on 2 hits and a walk in the first inning, and it was kind of the same the weekend prior when he gave up 5 in the first 3 innings against Nebraska, but he fought in that game to pitch scoreless innings in the 4th, 5th, and 6th, which was good to see. It's good to see his mental toughness and his mental grit to kind of battle through it. And then after he gave up those 2 runs in the first, he was absolutely dominant in innings 2 through 7. At one, you know, he didn't allow another run after the first inning, and at one point in innings 2 through 7, he struck out 7 batters in a row. He retired the last 13 batters he faced. His slider, Ianson's slider, is filthy. It's nasty. It's
disgusting.
Disgusting, yeah. In my mind, it's his best pitch, and it caused a ton of trouble for the North Alabama batters all day. He finished with 15 strikeouts. Ianson did in that game.
Can't even count that high.
That was the first time an LSU pitcher had that many strikeouts in a single game since Ty Floyd had 17 in the Omaha.
Feeling warm inside after you mentioning that,
makes me feel so good. Love you,
what
Ty.
a game.
What a game.
Should we pull up that game on YouTube and just, like, watch the highlights? You want to?
Maybe eventually.
Okay.
But, yeah, so, like, that was the last time that happened. Last time a pitcher has specifically struck out 15 for LSU, specifically 2015 was when Skeens did it against Auburn in the same season in 2023 in the regular season at Auburn. Ianson finished. He pitched 7 innings, allowed 2 earned runs in the first, allowed 2 hits, 2 walks, and again 15 strikeouts. So after that first inning where he originally struggled, he was absolutely on point, and he absolutely dominated the North Alabama hitters. And you know, it was awesome to see an LSU starter finish the 7th. It was the deepest outing for an LSU starter thus far this season. First time an LSU starter got through the 7th this season. Both Ianson and Anderson had their longest outings and got their pitch counts up into the mid-90s, setting them up for the start of SEC play. So I believe Anderson threw 92 pitches and Ianson threw 95. So they both worked deep outings. Anderson pitched, 6. Ianson pitched 7, which is good to see. And, I'm really confident in those two guys at the top with Anderson and Ianson. Like, I would be not that I'd be perfectly fine if Ianson, if we didn't have Anderson and Ianson was my ace. Ianson's got the arm to be an ace, with that slider, but you have Cade Anderson, who's so great as well, and Cade Anderson is your ace. But Ianson, 15 strikeouts was awesome. It was awesome. And, kind of talked about it earlier. The offense didn't have as good a game, but it wasn't a terrible game for the offense. It was still a solid outing overall. The North Alabama starting pitcher was Trip Patterson. Patterson was a lefty on the mound for North Alabama, and he threw a lot lower velocity compared to what LSU is used to. I saw a few pitches in the 70s and low 80s. He didn't really have, lights out stuff, but it was slower stuff than LSU hitting is used to. But he often put it in the right spots, Patterson did, and he located his pitches well. And he caused a little trouble for LSU, but LSU did still score 5 runs, 4 earned off of Patterson. LSU started the scoring in the first with 1 run coming in the first off of an Ethan Fry RBI double after Jared Jones hit a double earlier in the inning. So, again, Fry's a guy, again, speaking to that depth, especially in the outfield. Fry's a guy who he hit 3-run home run, I believe, in the last game in Frisco against Sam Houston State. That slugfest, LSU won 12-8, and then he had another nice RBI double to start the scoring for LSU in this game. Derek Curiel singled, and then Jared Jones hit another double in the third before Fry flew out to the second baseman. But Curiel scored after a throwing error was made on the second baseman's throw to the catcher. And that second run of the game tied the game for LSU at 2 because Ianson gave up those 2 runs in the first, and the game was tied at 2. Going into the bottom of the 5th before LSU scored 3 runs in the 5th off of a Curiel RBI double and then a Jared Jones 2-run home run that was at the time the 5th homer of the year for Jones. So again, Curiel and Jones just backing each other up, just banging the ball all around the ballpark, mashing it. Jones continues to show his power with that 2-run homer in the 5th to make it 5-2 LSU, and then LSU added 1 more run on their way to a 6-2 victory. Curiel had 2 hits in the game with a double and an RBI. Jones had 3 hits that included 2 doubles and that 2-run homer. He drove in 2 RBIs, on the day via that 2-run bomb. So, good game for LSU overall. Now, last game we're going to go over the North Alabama Game 3 that LSU won 11-5. Now, the Sunday game yesterday that LSU won 11-5 started really good for LSU. They scored 4 runs in the first inning off of another 2-run homer from Jared Jones. Jones hitting back-to-back 2-run homers in 2 days in a row, just showing, I think for a while he only had 1 homer or so, but I think in these 5 games, he had 4 home runs. Like, in these 5 games between the 2 against North Dakota State and the 2 against North Alabama, he hit 4 home runs. So his bat is starting to heat up a little bit as far as the long
definitely
ball.
Stat padding, because at first he only had 2. He had 2 for a while, and it was like Jared Jones 2 home runs. That doesn't really look right. And now he's up to 6.
Mm-hmm. It's
has he hit any more, or is it 6?
It's 6. It's
6. Okay.
Leads the team with 6 home runs. Does Jared Jones, and then after Jones put the first 2 on the board, Jake Brown later in the same inning hit an RBI single, and then there was a double steal where Jake Brown was thrown out at second, but a runner scored in the process. So again, LSU scored 4 runs in the first inning. Then they added another run in the 4th off of a solo home run by Stephen Milam, who's been heating up again. He's hitting above 400. Really, really good couple weeks by Milam. He's been hitting really well as well. That was his 4th homer of the season. As far as the pitching, Chase Shores again started another Sunday for LSU. And, Chase Shores is a guy who has the stuff. Like, he has the arm. He has the 97, 98, between 96 and 98 mile an hour fastball. It's always been about establishing that slider, that second pitch to get guys out. And, Shores, while I wouldn't say his performance has been up to that of Anderson and Ianson so far, he's still fought through. Like, I'll give his stat line real quick from the Sam Houston State game the weekend before. He pitched 5 innings against Sam Houston and gave up 4 earned runs on 7 hits, 3 walks, and 5 Ks. And he wasn't perfect at all in the Sam Houston game, but he had a lot of cushion that was given to him by his lineup. So he had a lot of cushion to kind of work around against Sam Houston State the weekend before. And then in this game against North Alabama, Shores gave up hits. He gave up 9 hits in the game, but he did a nice job of minimizing damage by finding ways to get out of the inning unscathed. With multiple runners on base, he found a way to do that in both the 1st and the 5th. The 2 runs Shores gave up came in the 3rd by way of a double, a walk, and 3 singles. So Shores pitched 5 innings. He gave up 2 earned runs on 9 hits, 2 walks, and 4 strikeouts. So you would like to see him allow less hits and get hit off of less, but he always finds a way to get out of jams, to get out of the inning, and to minimize the runs. So again, I wouldn't put his performance up there with what Ianson and Anderson did this weekend. But, last season at LSU, we've talked about it before. And I feel like it's such a big point of where it kind of went wrong to start SEC play last year. Is LSU had to win the Friday and Saturday game with Luke Holman and Gage Dump, because you probably weren't going to win the Sunday game because you didn't really have a Sunday starter. You had to start different guys on Sunday because you didn't necessarily have a third starter that was dependable and you could rely on. And Chase Shores is that guy this season, and LSU has that, and I'm comfortable with that. Again, he allows hits, but getting his way out of jams, figuring his way to work out of it, figuring the mental toughness and the fortitude to find a way to get out of it, I still like Shores, and I still, believe in him, And then LSU burst the game open for 6 runs in the 6th inning. In the 6th inning, Jake Brown and Tanner Reeves singled to start the inning. Then Chris Stanfield was hit by a pitch to load the bases. Freshman Derek Curiel was walked with the bases loaded. So again, leads the team with 21 walks issued to Curiel. Another one with the bases loaded to drive in a run. Then there was a Daniel Dickinson RBI single to bring home the 2nd run in the 6th inning. And then Josh Pearson hit his first ever grand slam as an LSU Tiger, and his 2nd run on the season. His 2nd homer on the season, his 2nd homer on the weekend. Josh Pearson's been really good, man. Like, I believe in Curiel, Jones, and Dickinson. They've been good all season. But if you're telling me Josh Pearson and Stephen Milam look how they look going into SEC play. I feel really good. And, Jake Brown's no slouch. He's also been hitting the ball really well lately, and it just shows the depth of this team. And it was good to see Josh Pearson again. I really like Josh Pearson. I know I said that before, so I'm not going to dwell on it too much, but good to see him hit his first Grand Slam ever as a Tiger for LSU. Going back to the mound, both Connor Benj and Jaden Newt pitched scoreless innings with 2 strikeouts in the 6th and the 7th. Cooper Williams did allow 1 run to score in the 8th by way of 2 walks and then a fielding error by Michael Braswell at shortstop that allowed the runner to score. Chandler Dorsey closed the game out in the 9th for LSU. He gave up 2 runs on 2 hits and 1 error. Going back to, overall, LSU finished this game. They won 11-5. Overall, it's been a really good 2 weeks for the Tigers. LSU looks really good, really confident at the plate going into SEC play. I feel really good about Anderson and Ianson on the mound. Kind of wrapping this show up as far as you have 6 guys, I'd say. I'm again, Jones, Dickinson, Curiel, lights out. Milam and Josh Pearson have been lights out. Jake Brown's been hitting really well. Luis Hernandez got his first homer this past weekend. Tanner Reeves got a 3-run homer, his first homer as a Tiger this past weekend. We've seen some good stuff out of Chris Stanfield as well. So this team can hit 1 through 9. It has its leaders. It has its, leaders in terms of average and all of that. But this team is deep. There's so much depth on this team just outside of those 9. There's Ethan Fry. We haven't even seen Ashton Larson lately. And Ashton Larson was a preseason, or not a preseason, but he was a freshman All-American last year. And he hasn't even played. So, yeah, just this team is really deep. They have a ton of talent. The pitching looks good. I'd say, again, I'm good with the rotation as it is right now, as far as have a lot of faith in Anderson and Ianson, especially. Ianson was lights out Saturday. Shores, again, allows hits, but the way he's been able the past 2 games against Sam Houston last weekend and this yesterday against North Alabama, the way he's been able to minimize damage and allow the fewest amount of runs possible despite giving up those hits has been impressive. I'd say your best relievers are by far Case and Evans. Zach Cowan's been good. Connor Ware's been good for the most part. He had that tough game against North Dakota State, but before that, all his appearances has been good. Connor Benj has pitched a lot. He's been pretty good. So, we haven't even seen Gavin Guidry yet. So there's a lot of depth on both sides of the ball. But I'd just say really excited to bring this coverage to you guys to dive into it, and excited for the start of SEC play against Missouri this upcoming weekend. We'll bring y'all, hopefully later in the week, we'll come out with a preview for the
doubleheader
before the Missouri series. We're going to try to start doing 2 shows a week.
Little doubleheader episode for you.
Little doubleheader. We're going to try to move to 2 episodes a week, and we want to have this show still stand as a recap show, but still maybe try to do a preview show for LSU's upcoming opponents and kind of preview show as far as the SEC and stuff like that as well. As far as the schedule, last thing I like to run down, kind of let recap the times as far as LSU's schedule this week. We are filming this on Monday, March 10th, the afternoon. So tomorrow, Tuesday, March 11th, LSU has a home game in the box against Xavier at 6:30 tomorrow night. And then SEC play starts Friday, March 14th. 3-game home series in the box against the Missouri Tigers, a battle of the Tigers. Friday game in the box is at 6:30. Saturday, the game is at 6. And the Sunday game is at 1. So, enjoy it, guys. Enjoy it. You know, that Missouri team is one of the weaker teams in the SEC. We'll kind of get into a breakdown of how they look, but this SEC schedule is a gauntlet, and it's going to be a lot of fun. A lot more pressure, the intensity on the team and also on the fan. I've always been where I've been able to be calm most games during non-conference play usually, and then my heart rate goes up once SEC play starts because of all the talent. I mean, just how many ranked teams, and LSU's going to play a lot of them.
The games mean more.
The games mean more, and, you know, so we're excited to bring it to y'all. Excited, you know, leave a like, you know, comment.
Tell your friends about the show.
Tell your friends about the show.
Justin's been working his ass off to cover this team for y'all. So you tell your friends if you watch the show.
It's been fun. It's been awesome. I really enjoyed it. Really loved it. One of, you know, I wouldn't do anything else. So
like, comment, subscribe, baby.
Exactly. Hope y'all have a good one.
We're out.